In this solo episode, Doland White breaks down the leadership trap that turns high-performing teams into dependent ones, and how to fix it using a people-first operating system grounded in trust, communication, and accountability.
Most leaders are working harder than they need to, and they're getting less done than they should. And this is because decisions, accountability, execution still all have to run through them. That's not sustainable, and it's certainly not necessary. In Lead with Confidence, I break down how to create a team that moves without waiting for you. If that matters, grab your copy. The link's in the show notes. Now let's get to the podcast episode. Welcome to the Next Interview Show podcast. I'm Doland White, as Liam, the announcer, mentioned when we came through that front door. And today, this is a solo episode. This is an important episode for me, and I wanted to hopefully be an important episode for you too. I wanted to get on and just share some ideas and also talk about something brand new at the end of the podcast. You know, I start every podcast with gratitude, and one of the things I get to do every time I'm on the podcast, except for solo episodes, is I get to talk to some brilliant executives about their businesses and things that they have learned coming in. So be sure to catch the episodes with other executives. One thing I don't get a chance to do is to thank you. For those of you that are listening to the podcast, that have become fans of the podcast, you've done just some amazing things. And the podcast is, I guess the word is, performing well in a lot of different markets, and has gained some notoriety here and there, which was not the intention for the podcast originally. It's focused on my mission, which is to empower 1 million leaders. It's one of the platforms for that mission. But I wanted to tell you thank you for that investment of your time. And enough of all of that. Let's get to the episode. So today, I wanted to do a solo episode and just spend a few minutes talking with you about frustration and what happened in my career, where I found moments where I was busy, but I wasn't getting anywhere. Things were, things weren't happening the way I thought that they would. And I was a busy dude. I was in a lot of meetings, talking to a lot of people, working long hours, working weekends, was away from my family, and was frustrated because I wasn't seeing the kind of results that I was looking for. And as my career, 40 plus year career, you've heard me say this before, I've had the chance to be senior leaders inside of a lot of different size organizations, been a president, CEO, COO of companies, and experienced this early in my career, we're going to talk about today. And what I noticed, and it's easy to fall into this trap because I fell into it a couple of more times, is that I would have a full calendar. And the full calendar was meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. Some of them were planning meetings to talk about the next meeting where we were going to consider making a decision, start thinking about making a decision. Some of them were meetings where I was the only person who was going to be there to call the ball, and the team was waiting on me to be available to call the ball, which meant I was slowing them down, although I didn't realize it at the time. And it was a lot of constant activity. And that constant activity made me feel like I was doing something, like I was, moving forward. It was kind of a, hey, look at me. I'm an executive, and I'm by God, I am busy. And therefore, if I'm busy, I must be accomplishing something. And exactly the other side of that was happening. Because I was busy, I wasn't accomplishing anything. Things weren't moving as fast as I had hoped they would be moving. And I noticed that quickly, because I would see where in a project the progress wasn't going. We weren't progressing along as fast as we had originally thought we were going to progress. And particularly when we would say words like, oh, piece of cake. It was not a piece of cake. And we were not moving along. And most of that was because I became the constraint. I became that person who was sitting at the gate that everybody had to come talk to, which meant that rather than being a leader, I became a doer. I became the person who had to do this, do that in order for us to move a project forward. And my team became very comfortable with that. And I'm going to talk about kind of the 5 areas behind that here in a couple of minutes. But it made me feel like because I was busy doing, this must be leading. And as you are listening to this as a leader, kind of want you to kind of step back, lean back in your chair or in your car. Don't close your eyes if you're driving. But I want you to ask yourself, in 3 domains, if I give you 3 domains that we work in, where are you? Do you manage, or do you lead? And you got to do all three. There's all three. So it's a percentage of time in each. Do is that thing that I was just talking about, which means I'm the doer. I have to do. Managing means I'm resourcing. I'm tracking milestones. I'm making sure my team is on time and in budget. I'm managing. And leading is the art of influencing other people to co-create an outcome, common outcome. So ask yourself that. Just take a moment, take a breath, and take a pause. And it's okay. I'm not expecting you to have a perfect answer to it, but what does your gut tell you where you are kind of like right now? When I was in that mode and I had to finally step back and catch myself as the doer, what the symptoms were that I discovered was I was continuously stepping in. And I would step in not because the team was incapable. I would step in because they weren't doing it my way. And when you're not doing it my way, it's the wrong way. And that can be a challenge as a leader. I think one of the biggest challenges is the willingness to let go of that. So I would step in to take over. We're gonna do it my way. Otherwise, we're off the rails. So the team would know that. I would also call that fixing. So I would see that because I had done it my way and given them instructions to do it my way, they would start down the path and they weren't following the path exactly. So I'd have to come back and fix it. I need to come back and fix it, to touch it, to kind of guide it, put the bumper rails back on, let's get it going. And to be direct, kind of that third last piece was the feeling that I had where, as a leader, you need to feel needed. I need to be present. I need to be seen. Otherwise, I'm not doing my job. If I'm not there, I must not be doing anything. So I felt like I needed to be needed to be there, when it's actually, you don't really need to be needed, right? If you're a leader and you're leading your team properly. So what I created inside of my organization was what I call the spiral of death, the slow spiral of death. And I'm going to give you 5 things that you can look at that you may identify inside of your organization as the spiral of death. The very first thing is step 1, you step in. You have a habit of stepping in an awful lot, and we can raise our hand and say, hi, my name is, and whatever your name is, I step in. Habit number 2 is then, because you step in frequently, your team defers. They just wait. They defer. They wait for you. And they know that they're going to wait for you because you're going to override them anyway, because you're going to step in. You're either going to fix it, or you're going to make a decision, or you're going to want to feel needed. The third is ownership drops. Because the team has deferred, the team is going to quit owning the outcome. They don't need to own the outcome. Actually, it's not that they quit. It's just they don't do it anymore because they don't need to, because they know you're going to own it. The fourth is you work harder. Your days get longer. Your gap between meetings gets shorter. The number of meetings go up. You start earlier, you end later, you work over the weekends, you're stressed, you're frustrated. The flip side of that is you carry that frustration home into your family and into your personal life and with your friends. So you have a negative impact on that side because, candidly, you're just worn out. And the last step, step 5, is rinse and repeat. Because you've created these habits inside of the body of your organization, you rinse and repeat. You'll hear these things, by the way, when people get hired and they're going through onboarding and they say, yeah, here's what happens. By the way, when you're going to make a decision, you need to check with Doland first to make sure that the decision is improved, right? So, because Dolan's going to step in and we're going to defer back to him. So don't worry about owning it, because just do your day job and work to the level that's, work to the level that you need to work to. But the rest is going to happen in his office and at his desk. And he'll tell you what to do. when he has time because he's working really hard. And then that repeats over and over and over and over and over. And that slow spiral of death happens inside of your team, and you start to see that you're missing outcomes. The numbers you're looking for don't occur. And when I was CEO of an organization, I had one of those kind of moments going on inside of the company, and I thought, well, I'm gonna fix this. And the way I fixed it was I installed a operational system over the top of the company, not a people system, but an operational system. And an operational system means I added more metrics, I added more meetings, I added more stand-ups, I added more check-ins, I added effort rather than people and empowerment. And when I added the effort, a couple of things started to happen. We started to slow down even more, first of all. Second of all, the team got frustrated because they already knew they didn't own it because I owned it, because I was making the decisions. So why are we having meetings about things to decide when actually you're going to decide them anyway? And our milestone meetings were ugly at points in time. The third thing that happened was it cost money. And where it cost money was not also in just the missed numbers, but it cost money in two areas that I hadn't contemplated. The first was in turnover, because people were frustrated, they left the organization. The second was because we added more metrics, more meetings, more time, more opportunity, more blah, 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 blah into the system, the operating system of the business. I had to hire people. And those people were brought on board specifically to manage all of the milestones, to create reports, to give me all of the stuff that I was looking for that I was going to decide anyway, or give the impression that the team decided, and then I would call the ball. So we began to see that slippery slope where we didn't have engagement to start with because I had created those 5 habits that ended in rinse and repeat, as I mentioned. And the last was I threw an operating system over the top of it. Now, that's not to say that an operational operating system isn't important. It's critically important to your business. Drucker tells us that. Deming tells us that. There's a lot of ways that we get those messages. But what's even more important is that your team has a structure that's people-centric that gives them the opportunity to perform. And it took me a few months to kind of figure out what was missing and why were we not performing. And a couple of conversations with my team who fortunately liked me enough to tell me exactly what was on their mind. So I had an aha moment. And this is a couple of decades ago. And one of the aha moments was, well, there's got to be an operating system to put in place that I can use to create an empowered team that can move things forward and support an operating system, an operations operating system over the top of it. And I had built teams before. I'd built sales organizations. I'd built consulting organizations. I had built partner organizations, traveled all over the world and taught to thousands of people, taught professionalism. So I took the best of all of those systems and brought them together into 4 domains. I'll tell you about those domains here in just a couple of minutes so you can write them down. But I put them into 4 domains, and mostly because I wanted to keep it really simple. We can't remember 10. Hell, we can barely remember 3, and I thought 4 was about the most that we could remember when we're trying to do things clearly and effectively inside of the body of a company. So the 4 domains that I created and began to experiment with and actually turned out to work were these. The very first is trust and autonomy. The second domain is communication and transparency. The third domain is growth and innovation. And the fourth domain is systems of accountability. And in summary, for each very quickly, and we can write these down as we go, but trust and autonomy. Trust is that willingness for me to trust me, for me to trust you, you to trust you, and you to trust me. Autonomy is that permission to try. I give you permission to try without retribution and do it your way, not my way. Communication is that willingness for us to have a conversation and to set up a consistent cadence on how that conversation is going to go. not ad hoc meetings, not all of the other components, but a communication system that keeps us in motion together to support trust. And trust supports communication. Transparency means if I don't know, I'm going to tell you I don't know. And if you don't know, you're going to tell me you don't know. And if we need clarity, we're going to get clarity. We're going to go figure it out. And we're going to figure it out together. And there's no fear of punitive issues if you don't know or if I don't know. As a matter of fact, as a leader, one of the rules you should have is if you have a consistent set of 3 people in the meeting with you at all times, and all 3 people agree with you at all times, get 3 other people. Now, the third is growth and innovation. Growth is 2 domains. It's the growth of your business, and it's the growth of you and your team, that you're investing in both of those so that your business grows. You're on the obligation as a leader to grow and create a profitable environment, even if it's a nonprofit company, to create a profitable environment so that you can do good things to and with your team, and they can do good things to and with their families. You're on that hook. And innovation is that permission that you give your team. Remember, we talked about autonomy. Innovation is the result of autonomy. Innovation is that freedom to ask, hey, what if? What if we did this? And what if we could improve the manner in which we did this? And it would raise our customer sat scores or NPS scores or increase margin or have an outcome. That is innovation. Innovation is the gateway to scale. And scale is the gateway to sustainable success. The last is systems of accountability. And a system of accountability is not a Trello board. It is not a Asana to-do list. It is none of those things. A system of accountability is an ownership system. It is that agreement between one or more individuals to move together confidently towards a common outcome. It is the agreement between one or more individuals, I'll say it again, to move confidently together towards a common outcome. That is being accountable. Milestones, Drucker, Deming, E-Myth, 4 disciplines, all of that stuff lives outside of that system of accountability. That's merely how we measure and give us that common direction as we're moving forward. So when you're thinking about those domains, 1 is trust and autonomy. 2, communication and transparency. 3, growth and innovation. 4, systems of accountability. That gives you the opportunity then to see through that lens. Am I the bottleneck? Is trust and autonomy broken? Am I creating confusion inside of the team, which means there's a communication problem? Clarity creates confidence. Am I creating that confusion? And then lack of ownership. A lot of times when I'm coaching executives, I just wish people would own, they need to own it like I own it. That's an accountability issue. So as you look at that, that gives you that opportunity to measure where you are and then leverage those 4 domains to work with your team. You don't want to go back and do what I did, which was I'm going to dump this operational operating system on top of everybody, and we're going to do it all at once. You're going to want to pick a domain and focus in on that domain. And when you pick that domain and you focus in on that domain, it's that opportunity then to begin to move your team forward to become an accountable, successful, highly leveraged, highly empowered, highly effective organization that needs you less so that you can go do more. Because they need you less doesn't mean you get to do less. It means you get to go do more. So what does all this mean? It means that I wrote a book. As I was thinking over the last couple of years about what all these things mean and being badgered by a great friend of mine, a guy named John Kiss, to write this book. So thank you, John. I wrote a book and it's called Lead with Confidence, and it's on Amazon today. And if you pick up a copy of the book, there's a Kindle version, obviously, and the paperback version. It's chock full of those 4 domains, plus confidence, plus stories from my life where things went well and didn't go well. There's a story in here about when I was a pool man at the age of 18, long time ago. So I would recommend pick up a copy of the book. I ask you to do pick up a copy of the book and then take one thing out of each of those domains and begin to execute it with your team. Now, if you don't know where to start, you can go to my website, dolandwhite.com. There's an assessment there that you can download. It takes about 20 minutes to do it, and it can give you some places to start. It's called the Are You the Bottleneck assessment. But pick up a copy of the book. The book will get you started as you move towards it. So I want to end this podcast episode with a little gratitude. The very first part of the gratitude, again, is for you, the listener, and for you investing time inside of the body of the podcast with the other executives that I've had, and today especially, for hanging out with me to hear me give a little coaching and talk about what's in my book, give a little shameless plug for the book. The second part of the gratitude is for the person you're going to go help. I talk about my mission. My mission is to empower 1 million leaders. We can't do that together. We can do it as a whole. And by that, I mean, give the podcast a know, like, share, or follow. That elevates the podcast so it becomes visible. As a whole, it means we share with each other. So take the lessons that you learned out of this, or if you know a leader who's having a challenge and they may be suffering from some of these symptoms, share this podcast episode with them, help them be better leaders. And as better leaders, we take better care of each other, better care of our families. We provide a better future and a better life. I'm Doland White. I'm the Empowerment Guy. This has been the Next Interview Show podcast. I'll see everybody next Tuesday.
Thanks for listening to this week's The Next Interview Show podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and then take time to turn what you heard here into action.